Hey there, YouTuber. So, gonna compare some of the numbers that I got, FPS that is, with all these graphics cards. Hopefully, I captured them all in the title. But we're talking GTX 1650, which is a 4 gig card. GTX 1660 Super, 6 gig card. RTX 2060 12 gig. RX 5500 XT 8 gig. The RX 580 that I have, which is 8 gig, and GTX 1060 6 gig. Two different settings were used in Fortnite, and we'll see that in a moment. So, the rest of the hardware used, i7-12700F, one of my best CPUs for Fortnite. This was used on the ASRock B660M-ITX. In this case, the M doesn't make a lot of sense because it is an ITX motherboard. Definitely not my best motherboard. Potentially some loss in performance using this motherboard. 1 terabyte silicone power M.2 Gen 3 Intel Laminar RH1 stock cooler. That's the one that comes with the i9-12900. It's the only place to get it, that and the i9-12900F. 4000 megahertz DDR4 RAM, that's 16 gigahertz. EVGA 750 watt power supply. Actually, that's not a true statement. Just have to edit this stuff on the fly. This is a gold, and I guess why not, in case I reshoot this. Hey, so that's 2.6 of that. Now, here we go. First FPS setting, 1080p competitive, and we're going to show the FPS average here when I move this out of the way. There's our graphics cards. Dell GTX 1050 2 gig, Asus GTX 1654 gig, Asus GTX 1066 gig, MSI RX 5500 XT 8 gig, MSI RX 588 gig, MSI GTX 1660 Super. We also have the TI. We had the regular as well. EVGA RTX 2060 12 gig. I have the regular of that. Zotac RTX 2060 Super 8 gig. And a Gigabyte RTX 3060. So some of these show up in another video I did, but note I only played one game at each setting for the graphics card. I did not use replay mode. Replay mode is kind of difficult to do with this, especially when they're changing stuff and your replay modes crap out on you. So no way for me to shoot this in a whole day. Some games, the gamer lasted longer. Basically, that's me. I lasted longer than others, and we'll talk about that a little bit. All games were played on with the same motherboard, CPU cooler, RAM, etc. All right, so 1 minute into the game, here is the FPS average. So you're going to see 1, 5, 10, 15. All right, and then you'll see what place I finished. So right off the bat, you know, is based almost in order of what is the way the cards are stacked up against each other. Obviously, this 2 gig 1050 is going to be the worst. The Gigabyte RTX 3060, you know, it's questionable whether it would really be much better than these three. In this case, 1 minute into that game, it was. 5 minutes later. And the longer you get into this, the better idea you have of things settling down a little bit, right? But there is quite a range that you could have. Just if I were to play with the same graphics card over and over and over, I would never probably end up with the same average at the end of the game, okay? If I did, it would be a fluke. So, you know, some of these guys will do these bar charts. Oh, this was the average of this game. They only played one. You know, how accurate is that? Hey, be honest with you, if you're going to do a real scientific test, you're going to do at least 3 of these. That would have taken me forever, so unfortunately we're getting one here. All right, 5 minutes into this, you can basically see, you know, once again, left to right. As you get further to the right, usually it gets better. Obviously some places in here. Now, in this case, I was surprised the 5500 XT 8 gig is doing so much better than the 580. I do sometimes wonder about this 580 if it's altogether healthy, but in the 1060, not doing as good as the 1650. That was a surprise. But over on this end, 2060, you know, some people had said that the 12 gig 2060 would outperform the 2060 Super. Could this just be because Zotac is kind of a crappy company? That's another story. All right, 10 minutes into this. So you see here, this is where I actually died. I didn't make it to 10 minutes. But RTX 3060 out of all these cards is the best card. All right, in this case, followed by the 12 gig 2060. Now this is 1080p competitive, still quite a CPU intensive setting. Potentially I should have did 1080p low, and then the next setting, which you'll see. Now, there's also a video out there with these guys for 1440p, okay? 15 minutes into it, I started to die quite a bit, right? We only lasted these 3 games. Now, is that a good example of how good a player I am? You'll see, bam, first place, second place. This is not really a good idea how I am at Fortnite, but sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. That's out of 100 people, right? So, but you can see, obviously, does it matter what graphics card you have? This is kind of an example. The shittiest card on here, folks, I got a first place, right? Not the crappiest card, but somewhere in the middle, second place. I could have won this game. You know, sometimes you just make stupid mistakes. Any of these games, maybe there was a stupid mistake made. All right, moving on. Next setting, 1080p epic, no shadows. And this is going to be the FPS average again. Those same time periods. All this still matters. 1 minute into it, okay? So, a little bit more graphics intensive, right? We've changed the quality. Does that change things over here? Well, right off the bat, the RTX 3060 is not doing as good. Will that change? Some of this is going to be inconclusive, right? If you didn't last long enough in the game, maybe that, you know, is obviously one point. Doing this only once, another point. But, you know, right off the bat, at least you get an idea. You get a ballpark, right? If we could come up with an error here, plus minus 10 FPS, plus minus 20, whatever that is, then, you know, that would be much better. So, obviously, like I said, much more GPU intensive. The 1050 really struggled at this, right? As well as the 1650. Heck, any of these cards from here to the left, this is not, you know, obviously an ideal setting for these, especially if you got a 144 hertz monitor, right? And actually, this is the only one so far that was handling it. Then, 5 minutes into it, this was getting even worse. A lot of these are getting better. Why is that? Who knows? You know, a lot of it could be where I landed. You know, how much action happened between 1 minute and 5 minutes. Maybe that lowered the FPS, but 3060 came charging back, right? In this case, followed by the 2060, the 12 gig 2060. 10 minutes into this, 1050 dropping off more. I died here with this one. You can see over here, 2060. These guys neck and neck at this point, huh? And then 15 minutes into it, I start to die in a few more games. This continues to get worse. Died on this one, died on that one. 104. And then we don't get a good idea how this one finished, but it's not going to make that difference up most likely. And once again, the RTX 3060 finishes first. Now, how did I place in these games? We had a second, we had a couple third places, basically all over the place. And so, you know, obviously in this grouping, 3060 is the best. Followed by these guys, not too far behind, right? Well, at least this one's not too far behind. The 2060 Super, surprisingly, was back further than I would expect it. Now, if we go back to this, once again, as a reminder, this once again finished second to this guy, right? At this setting, the 1660 Super is not too bad, but over here, you know, that's a significant drop off from these other guys. So there you go, folks. Thanks for checking out the video. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you.